Good afternoon. It's Friday at 2 o'clock, and therefore it's the One Question weekly video. And this week we are covering the 10 reasons why Net Promoter Score is flawed and the one thing that you could be doing instead. So let's dive straight in. So Net Promoter Score, what is Net Promoter Score? Well, even if you don't know the term Net Promoter Score or NPS, you will certainly know the question. So Net Promoter Score was a metric that was first developed back in 1993 by Fred Reichheld alongside in 2003 Bain & Co. and Satmetrics. And it was designed as a way to predict customer loyalty and customer purchase and their referral behavior by asking a single survey question, which was, how likely are you to recommend a company to a friend or colleague? That has been used in so many platforms since then. You will have seen that question again and again and again from multiple companies as it was adopted by large enterprises and over the years has been used by small and medium businesses. So it's very widely used. It's the incumbent metric in the feedback industry. And unfortunately, though, we believe that it is seriously flawed, which I am now going to take you through the 10 stages why. So Net Promoter Score, I'm going to give you an example here. Number one is just distribution. So in my chart here, I've got Q1 of a year. You can see the distribution here of people. So most people have given us a 0. About half of that again have given us a 1 and a 2 and a 3, and there's very few have given us a high score. So the majority of those customers are giving you a 0. So under NPS's score, that gives us a score of -79. Now, Net Promoter Score is a score between -100 and 100. So that would give you a score of -79. So obviously that's not good. So as a business owner, you pull your team together and say, look, the majority of our customers are giving us a low score. You know, we really do need to improve. So let's say hypothetically in Q2, these were the results at the end of the quarter. So obviously we've got nowhere near as many zeros, virtually no zeros. A majority of our customers are now 6 out of 10, loads of 5s and 4s. And you go, okay, that's a dramatic improvement than where we were at the end of Q1. So in the NPS formula, what would that give the score as? Believe it or not, the score is exactly the same. It's still -79. So therefore, it does not reflect any sort of performance or it doesn't reflect improved performance in a way that actually will get your team motivated. Because you can imagine a team spending 3 months feeling like they were really making a difference, and then you report back to them that the score is -79 still. So then moving into Q3. So Q3, we haven't made as bigger improvements. So it's very similar to Q2. If you look at the graph, we've got a few people obviously have moved into 7 from 6, but effectively it's very similar to Q2. So you would think the score is going to be similar. And yet the score in NPS then suddenly becomes -48. Therefore, the first major flaw with NPS, it is not a metric for continuous improvement and continuous growth in your business, because the number itself is very confusing. Not just the fact that it doesn't change in a way that actually makes it useful, but actually also what does a score of -79 actually mean to anybody? So flaw number one. Flaw number two. So Harvard Business Review back in October 2007, and the Harvard Business Review were the first people really to push NPS out there and tell the world about it. So they actually went back and did a review of asking people whether they would refer. Does that actually result in increased business and loyalty and advocacy and all this good stuff? So they looked at a company that had asked the NPS question of 9,900 of their customers. Of those, 81%, so just over 8,000, had said yes, they definitely would refer. They were a 9 or a 10 in NPS, and therefore they would tell friends and colleagues and loved ones, etc. In reality, of those 8,000 that said they would, only 2,970 actually went on to do it. So this is people's perception of what they would do, and the reality of what they would do are not the same. How many times have we said, we're going to go on a diet, we're going to stop smoking, etc.? Is what people say and their actual behavior are not necessarily the same thing. So of those 2,970 people that actually went ahead and did tell friends, that generated 356 new customers, of which of those 356, 28 were profitable customers. Therefore, we've taken a pool of virtually 10,000 people and actually generated 28 new profitable customers off the back of it. So therefore, using NPS as your advocacy, referral, loyalty logic, I'm afraid, does not yield the results that you would hope for. So flaw number 3, in NPS world, a 9 and a 10 are exactly the same thing. They are classed as promoters. I would strongly disagree that they're the same thing. Let's say, for example, I own a restaurant and I have a customer who gives me a 9. That person is what we would call a butter. In other words, they're going to say the meal was great, the service was great, the dessert was lovely, really enjoyed it, but the toilets were a mess, or but it was a bit cold, or whatever it happens to be. So a 9 and a 10 are most definitely not the same thing, but in NPS they are. Therefore, effectively, you can get a perfect NPS score of 100 without a single one of your customers giving you a 10. So flaw number 3. Flaw number 4, NPS is originally designed as a relational question, and yet most businesses use it in a transactional way. So what I mean by that is, if I was to say, for example, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to refer Apple as a brand? That is a relational question. I'm asking about how you feel about the brand of Apple. But if I ask you on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to refer your friends to buy an Apple Watch? That's a transactional thing. It's a smaller segment. It's a moment in time. It could be your experience last week when you walked into a business. Therefore, most businesses are not using NPS for what it was originally designed for, which is actually a relationship question. NPS themselves are trying to evolve their logic to say that it is transactional, but it just most definitely isn't. And therefore, really, we live in a transactional world now where the two are coming together. But again, to use NPS to find out how people feel transactionally, it is flawed. Number 5. So imagine your team, you pull them together in a team meeting and you try and get them excited about the NPS score. A score between -100 and 100, which they don't know what they've got to do to improve it. They don't even know what it means. There are sectors out there that average NPS scores at -30, -40. It is very difficult to get anyone in your team to get motivated when you tell them our score is -41 this week. It was -42 last week. So therefore, actually, as a behavior changing metric that your team can get behind, it is flawed. Number 6. So if we actually look at NPS, we have an 11-point scale, so 0 to 10. There has never been, even though there was all of this research done by universities and, you know, it's supposedly this perfect question, there is no logic or no explanation of why it is an 11-point scale. In the NPS formula, they completely ignore 7s and 8s. They're classed as passives. And again, I would debate that and say that's incorrect. Somebody that gives you 8, A has a value, but also actually an 8 out of 10 is probably a satisfied customer. Not saying it's the goal, but they certainly shouldn't be ignored. My biggest issue with it is the last one, is in NPS world, a 0 and a 6 mean exactly the same thing. Now, I would argue if I had 2 customers in front of me, one was a 0 and one was a 6, they are not the same customer. The 0 is likely to be looking to damage my brand reputation, is probably angry because they couldn't even give me a 1, whereas the 6 is more likely someone who it was okay. You know, they're likely to move brand, they're likely to go somewhere else, but I don't know that they're going to be angry. So they are most definitely not the same thing. And yet in NPS, they are. So another flaw. NPS, because it's been, and it's not really NPS's fault, this is just the annals of time. NPS has been used so much over the years. I am sure as soon as you saw the question, you thought, yeah, I just see that all the time, is we become immune to it. People do not fill it in. So therefore, the more NPS has been used over the years, the less effective it's become. So therefore, yes, you are going to find out a score out of 10 for a certain cohort, a certain amount. The silent majority of your customers have just become immune to answering that question, especially when it's linked in usually with long form surveys. So it's part of 10 or 20 or 30 questions that most people just do not want to fill out and won't fill out. Number 8, So the problem with NPS is it's asking you your propensity to refer, to tell somebody else. What it's not actually doing is it's not asking you how do you feel. It's not asking you how happy you are. And therefore, if you ask someone how happy they are, therefore how happy you are about a company drives your referral behavior, but also your own purchase behavior, your repeat purchase behavior. And therefore it is the wrong question, full stop. In the modern era, we're living in a relationship era now where it's about how we all feel about brands. It's the experience. It's not about the product. It's not about the service. It's about the experience. The question itself is fundamentally flawed. Number 9, NPS is a quantitative score. In other words, I know that my NPS score is 37. What it doesn't give me, and actually more valuable, is the qualitative. In other words, it's not telling me why they feel that way. Therefore, there is, for your team, you put your team together and say, right, our score is minus 42. So the team will turn around and say, okay, that sounds pretty bad. We don't really understand it, but it obviously isn't good. What can we do to improve? How can we correct the business? How can we grow the business? Is you don't get that detail. With just asking the question 0 to 10, you have no why. And the why people would or wouldn't refer you is the key, because that's the information and the insight that you need to be able to grow your business by taking action upon that on that insight. But with NPS, you are just getting a number. That's because that is a enterprise metric that is passed up through a spreadsheet, and therefore really is just about a single number to a lot of businesses, and it's reported in the boardroom and makes no difference in the staff room. So the 10th, well, not the last floor, the 10th floor, we actually had, when we actually sat and went through this week, we actually had about 25. So we've just picked the first 10. And the 10th floor this is a traditional organizational structure where obviously the boss is on the top, his senior team or her senior team, the middle management, and then obviously the frontline staff. So in terms of NPS, the feedback is sterilized on the way up because not everyone wants the boss knowing and the boss knowing, etc. But this number, without any of the why, this NPS number comes from the shop floor and works its way up to the management. So I'm the boss sitting at the top, and eventually I get given this number with very little context. Can I trust it? Has it been sterilized? Has it got a positive intention? Or actually, is this a stick culture where I'm the boss, I get told the score is minus 11, and therefore what really comes down from me as the boss is criticism. I pull the senior team together. This isn't good enough. I want to see improvements. They go away, pull the middle managers together. This isn't good enough. And therefore it's a stick culture with the criticism dropping down and the sterilized feedback coming up. And in this NPS org chart and the way that it's done, where's the customer? Where is the customer in that org chart? At what point were the customers feeling? Why they like you? Why they love you? Where did that come into it? It didn't. What was really created was a single metric that was just passed up the line to sit in a dusty folder on someone's shelf because apparently NPS is what everyone should be doing. So hopefully you agree with me that NPS is fundamentally flawed. It's a pretty obvious argument when you really look under the bonnet of it, but KPIs are important. We all need something to get our teams behind. We all need something to, if you're not measuring, you're not managing. So what can you use instead? So we recommend customer happiness score. So CHS for short, so you can remember it easier. It was created by my co-founder, John Potter, and myself. And it is a very simple, deliberately simple and effective method of actually understanding how your customers feel. How your customers feel is the key. No other question. And the reason as a company we're called the one question is you need to know how happy your customers and your employees and then do something about it. So therefore, just saying to people, how do you feel? We then show them 5 simple emoji style faces, which represent from the saddest face is actively unhappy. The reason we call it actively, it means they're likely to do something, i.e. leave a negative review or tell people not to use you as a business, to the happiest face, which is actively happy. These are the people that are going to do your referral, your loyalty, they're brand protectors. These are the people that love you. That, though, is followed by this key, tell us more. It's an agnostic question. It doesn't lead them. It just says, tell us more. And that is hugely valuable because you're getting that qualitative information about what you can do to make more of your customers happy. So the score, the customer happiness score, ranges from 0 to 100. Therefore, you don't need to explain to your team how it works. People just understand it and they get it. So I'll give you an example here to go back over the 10 flaws of NPS and why CHS solves all 10 of those flaws. So example here, I've got Q1. Unfortunately, the majority of my customers are actively unhappy. There's quite a few that are unhappy. And then obviously we have a few neutrals and happy and actively happy. So in CHS, that would give us a score of 31 out of 100. Very simple for your team to understand. Because that's a happiness score, they even understand that they haven't delivered happiness. And that actually a score of 31 means there's some big room for improvement. So in Q2, your team start to improve. So we've got a lot less actively unhappy people, but we still have quite a few unhappy customers, a few more neutrals. So there's still a lot of room for improvement, but at least we've not got those actively unhappy people that we had in Q1. And therefore the score becomes 47. So although you're not where you want to be as a team, you're not in the 80s and the 90s, at least your team can go, okay, we're getting better. It's continuous improvement. We are always moving that number up. We're always delivering happiness to get that number as high as we can go. So then in Q3, we've had really good changes. We've suddenly, the majority of our customers, or the highest percentage, are actively happy and they're out there doing brand promotion. We've got loads of happy customers. And yes, we've still got some neutral and some unhappy, but our score becomes 69. And therefore, again, it's an improvement. There is still loads of room for improvement. And the nice thing with the customer happiness score is until you hit 100, effectively all of your customers actively happy, there is always room for improvement. And because they are telling you more, you also get the information from your customers telling you what they would like to see to make them happier. And therefore your team actually understand how what they're doing affects the happiness score and therefore the happiness of your customers. So in NPS terms, we talked about how actually when they researched referral is that people didn't actually go on and refer. The logic of CHS is if you've got an army of actively happy customers out there, they are doing your marketing for you. They are doing your brand protection for you. They are going out there. They're telling their friends and their family and their loved ones, come and use you. They're actively happy, which creates a echo effect. So in terms of, do actively happy customers driving new business? Of course they do. We all know as business owners that word of mouth is the strongest way of growing our businesses, and CHS was specifically designed for measuring and therefore promoting word of mouth marketing. Number 3, in CHS, there is only one first place, and that is actively happy. We know in NPS there was 9 and 10 were the same thing. They're most definitely not. If a customer for us in CHS is just happy, happy's great, but you cannot be actively happy. If someone has given you the happiest face, then that's something to celebrate. You know they love you, you love them, and you can build that community and that relationship with them. Therefore, for your team, it is so important to understand that what they're aiming for is 100% of your customers are actively happy, because just happy customers is not enough. You need to be above and beyond the wow, they're giving them more than they expect. Make them actively happy, because actively means they're going to go and do something with it. They're going to tell their friends. They're going to leave you a positive review online. They're going to just use you without even looking at other businesses because they're so happy with the service and the product and the experience that you're delivering. So number 4, transactionally and relationship. The good thing with CHS is it's actually both, depending on how you ask the question. So because you're asking, how do you feel? If you say to a customer, how do you feel about Apple as a brand, you're going to get that relationship response. And if you ask a customer, how do you feel about your visit to the Apple store last Thursday, you're going to get a transactional response. So the forming of the back end of the question drives whether you're looking for transactional or relational. I would argue nowadays that transactional is the most important, because how someone feels today about you and your business will drive their current behavior, their future behavior, their referral behavior. And therefore, it's the key thing is always in the moment, making sure your customers are happy as a team behind it, but also for your customers' benefit. So another benefit, it's between 0 and 100. If all of your customers are actively unhappy, your team score is 0. Hopefully that's something that nobody would ever experience. But if all of your customers are actively happy, your score is 100. It is so simple for your team to understand. You don't even need to explain it. If you say we've got a happiness score of 96, people know that's good. They know there's room for improvement, but you don't have to explain it. Therefore, it can become effectively gamificating your entire team to get behind making that score 100. And, you know, as a business, to get a score of 100 is probably aspirational, but it's continuous improvement. It doesn't matter where you start. If you are only on 30 or 40, you can, you know, the first challenge is let's get to 50, 60, 70. If you are an amazing business already, delivering an experience with a score in the 90s, then there is still room for improvement, always room for improvement. Number 6, we take the 5 faces. The reason there are 5 faces as opposed to NPS, although it's an 11-point scale, there are only actually 3 cohorts. There is 0 to 6, 7 and 8, and 9 and 10. We actually specifically made 5 cohorts here because they are not the same as each other. We disagree with a 7 and an 8 of the same thing in NPS. These 5 cohorts, they are different people in terms of their feeling towards your business. If somebody is a neutral in the middle, the message, the tone of your marketing, how you're going to win them back, that's a win back customer. That customer's going to leave you and go off and try other businesses. If someone's actively happy, you know you can talk to them in a we love you, you love us kind of way. If somebody is actively unhappy, you know it's service recovery. You want to turn them around. So those 5 faces break all of the issues on NPS in how they break up that 11-point scale. Number 7, so fill in, simple as that. Why is it 5 faces? Because it was tested for 2 years and 5 emoji faces gets the highest possible fill-in rate. It gets just over double the fill-in rate of Net Promoter Scores question. It can get 20 times the fill-in rate of long-form, boring surveys that are 25 questions. And therefore, what you're really doing by just saying to people, how do you feel, is you're unlocking the silent majority. You're unlocking the wisdom of the crowd, your core customers, and almost the reverse of that is by not hearing from them, you're making business decisions based on your outliers, your zeros and your 10s in NPS, but they're not your core customers. You need to know about how the majority of your customers feel. And there is no other way of getting more of them to tell you how you feel than 5 simple faces with a click here. And the tell us more, again, you're not driving them into filling in loads of boxes or asking leading questions. That tell us more, people are happy to fill in because it's simple. They can fill it in a few seconds, and therefore you actually unlock this silent majority. Most businesses who do feedback, it's not for the benefit of the customer. The customer knows that. They know there's going to be no outcome and personal benefit to them as the customer. Therefore, fill-in rates on surveys become less and less and less. And therefore, as business owners, we are working on skewed data. So number 8, how do you feel? It's feelings-based. That's the question. And as I said previously, how people feel about you and your business is what will drive their future or current, but also their future behavior. So it is, in the experience era we're in now, it is the perfect question. Number 9. So we have qualitative and quantitative. You need both. You need the measure, you need the number, because it's a very simple way of getting your team behind. It's a simple way of understanding where you are as a business without having to dig under the bonnet. But having that important why, which is obviously what we give with the tell us more, what that actually allows is obviously to take action. Therefore, if your team know why, so if your score is 90, if they look at the why and look at some of the neutral comments, the unhappy comments, just the happy comments, and they take action against those comments, then that score will improve. So suddenly this score becomes the temperature, the thermometer of whether the actions that you took. So effectively, you become self-correcting as a business by all you're doing is listening to your customers, asking them how they feel, finding out how happy they are, doing something about it, and the score rises. So we argue, therefore, that we are flipping the org chart in the way we work. So actually, who we're putting at the top? The customers. The customer ultimately should be in every organizational chart. That customer is obviously interacting with your frontline teams, and they are giving them feedback, but they're giving them feedback. The masses are telling them how they feel. but also why they feel that way. So suddenly, instead of you as a business owner and the boss, or as a senior manager having to go and moan at your team because we're not good enough, instead of it being a stick culture, actually your front line are hearing from the customers about how they feel, how happy they are. Therefore, it's not about you as the boss being seen as the one to moan. Your actual role as the boss is there to support your team in delivering happiness and supporting that. And therefore your customers are actually become the voice that corrects and directs your business in the future. So we believe that CHS honestly is a game-changing replacement for NPS in any business. We've replaced NPS ourselves. The reason we created CHS was the deep frustrations around Net Promoter Score, and we believe it is a game changer for most businesses. So if you'd like to know more about it, we've got an amazing team here who live and breathe happiness all day long. So pop along to our brand new website that went live this week on theonequestion.com, or email us at hello@theonequestion.com. Hopefully this has been useful, and I look forward to seeing you all next Friday for our weekly finish. Take care now. Cheers. Bye.